Welcome everybody to the next episode of Cannabis Review. I'm delighted to be joined on this episode by Andy Mannsfeld, who's the Managing Director at EUCannaJobs. How are you keeping today, Andy?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Owen?
I'm fantastic. Thank you very much for taking your time to do this. I know you're a busy man, just back from Mary Jane. Can you maybe give everybody a little overview of why you guys set up EUCannaJobs and your position in the industry up to date?
Yeah, be glad to. So we started EUCannaJobs because we noticed a couple of years ago that it was really difficult to find talent in the industry. We were working on a separate cannabis project here in Europe, and we are looking for staff and just found it difficult. So we ended up having to go through Indeed and other places like that, and it just didn't work. The talent was spread out all over the place. And then when we tried listing jobs, also it was not really working, finding people that were familiar with cannabis, and just decided that needed to be changed. We also know that, or knew from back in the U.S., that there are a lot of different types of cannabis specific or cannabis industry specific jobs platforms there. They seem to work really well, and so we decided that was a good way to go here, and just try and help the industry and help individuals trying to get into the industry.
Yeah, it seems to be an opportune time that you guys have set up with the industry growing at the rate it's going to grow over the next 5 to 10 years. And hiring talent is a speciality in any industry, whether it's cannabis or not. Can you maybe give everybody an overview when it comes to searching for cannabis jobs in Europe? How do you guys partner up with the various brands, and how do you guys find the employees looking to find these jobs?
Yeah, so initially for partnering up with the companies, it was good old fashioned sales calls, reaching out to the companies, explaining what we're doing, and we were lucky to find some big companies and a lot of small companies who were interested in partnering with us early on. Now, of course, at Mary Jane, we found a lot more companies that want to join the platform. But for the companies, it was just reaching out, explaining what we're doing, and for the most part, almost everyone said, "Yeah, we definitely need something like that," which also helped encourage us to keep pushing forward. Which sometimes it can be, when you face challenges, it's always easy to want to give up. It's a matter of just seeing the vision and pushing forward. The finding the candidates is of course a little bit more challenging. You can't just reach out to the hundreds of companies or reach out to candidates like we do to the hundreds of companies. So we're using social media, whether it be through the Meta platforms or LinkedIn, and also going to events like Mary Jane. We've been to several others over the last year or so to really just reach those people who are at these events, since they're obviously interested in the industry. At Mary Jane, it was interesting to see how many candidates or potential candidates were like, "Oh, this is a great idea," or "I can work in the cannabis industry," and very surprised. It's like, well, of course, they need workers. It doesn't come from nowhere. So very good response. And so we're continuing with just a social media strategy, trying to reach out and get the word out to those candidates.
I can imagine the amount of interest that there would be from regular people just wanting to get jobs in this industry, especially if you've got a love for cannabis already. When it comes to the current jobs that are around at the moment, does it seem to be marketing and cultivation are kind of at the forefront of this at the moment, or is it business development and advertising? What are you seeing as the most popular jobs currently in the industry? Because the runway for growth is not exactly clear yet for a lot of companies. So what do you see as the most advantageous route for people to get into this industry right now?
Yeah, so the three top kind of categories that we're seeing right now are marketing, sales, and IT, which kind of makes sense. Obviously IT is involved in everything nowadays, and marketing, sales, regardless of what your product is, if you're not selling it or getting people interested in it, then there's no point in being in business. So those are the three biggest categories. Cultivation is actually fairly small part of it, which also kind of makes sense. But in the end, it's really important that people just see what they're interested in, and not necessarily say, well, there's a lot of marketing, so now I need to become an expert in marketing and change what my interest is. With any career, it's really important to think about what you want to do and then try and see if what your interests are fits with the jobs that are out there. For a lot of people who are just starting off, maybe they're young and maybe they're still in school, a good way to go is by doing internships so that they can actually go work at some of these companies and get to learn a little bit more about the business, and then they might be able to find their path in the industry that way. Because a lot of times we just don't know exactly what we want to do until we start kind of doing things, and then we kind of find our way.
And is there a certain territory at the moment that is kind of posting a lot of the main jobs? Is it Germany, or are there other territories around Europe? And what do you see, like, let's say in the next 5 years, as being the most advantageous territory?
Yeah, right now, definitely the majority of the jobs are in Germany. Germany currently has the biggest medical market. All the medical markets, of course, have their issues with patient access and insurance reimbursement. So there's always issues, and they're different in each country. But Germany still has the biggest medical market right now. So it's where the most jobs are. That will probably continue over the next 5 years or so. Germany is kind of pushing the legalization envelope right now the most, and they expect to have cannabis social clubs and home growing in the next year or two. And after that, also have different types of research projects, they're calling them, where you'll be able to have legalized sales in individual cities. How those details will work, no one knows right now. But the point being, Germany's probably going to continue to be the biggest market. As other countries like the Czech Republic are looking at legalization, of course, those types of things can change the dynamics very quickly. If the Czech Republic were to do full legalization before Germany, then of course that's going to increase jobs there dramatically. But you also have, Portugal, Spain, France, the UK. Everyone's discussing it. All the bigger countries and smaller countries are discussing different types of legalization pathways, and all that can change with politics so quickly. So, who will really be the biggest market in 5 or 10 years? We can't really say, but for now, it looks like it's going to be Germany.
When it comes to the jobs hunt, do you see the UK as being a bit of an outlier? With Brexit happening, I would imagine that the extra certification or the extra immigration level that's going to be involved for employees, let's say if you're in the European continent, going to the UK and surely being taxed and all the other different hurdles that are coming to fruition from Brexit, do you see the UK as one of the markets that's actually going to be lacking when it comes to people applying for jobs? Because if there's an option between Portugal and Spain and the UK, I think you're going to have a lot of people choosing the European continent.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two sides to that. On the one side, sure, if someone's in Czech Republic or Germany and they see a grow opportunity or whatever type of career opportunity in Portugal, it's super easy for them to just go down there and start working. So for the European continent, that's going to be easier. But what it does allow, the advantage for the UK might be that everyone in the UK, then kind of their jobs are somewhat protected, because it's more difficult for someone from the European continent to come over and take those jobs. So, and that was part of the Brexit argument, I think, all along. So in some sense, that might actually help the UK market develop on its own and be a little bit more self-sufficient and stronger. And the UK is, it does have a medical market already, and they're working on their different, or having their discussions about what legalization could potentially look like. But it's really difficult to say. Once again, it all depends on those politics and what really happens with those legalization discussions. If the UK were to somehow all of a sudden do legalization, then the market would explode there. And you would probably see a lot of people trying to move over there to be a part of that.
Yeah, I don't think with the politicians currently in the UK that there's any sign of legalization coming in the next 5 years.
I agree.
When it comes to the certain territories around Europe, one of the things we see in Ireland that Ireland is very well positioned for is being the entry point into Europe and offering services such as law and finance and taxation. You've obviously then got the likes of Portugal and Spain. You've got the climate for cultivation. And then you've obviously got places like North Macedonia and Romania doing extraction and other areas. Do you see the Europe is going to be broken up into those little segments where this territory excels at this and this territory excels at that, and it all then gets moved around Europe, or do you see each individual territory having their own extraction, their own cultivation, their own finance? What are your outlook on the European industry when it comes to those segmentations?
Yeah, I think in the short run, you're going to see individual countries, kind of like you have in the US with the individual states having to do it, have their own industries. I think you're going to see that in the short term in Europe too, because right now, for medical purposes, you can do import and export, but when for recreational purposes, you're not going to be able to do any type of import export, it looks like, based on the current EU regulations and the way the EU is kind of sticking to those regulations. I think in the long term, medium to long term, 5 to 10 years, you're going to see those regulations be changed or reinterpreted or something to where you're going to see regular import export between the countries, even for recreational purposes. But until we get to that point, probably you're going to see a lot of industry, homegrown type industries, for at least for the recreational side of it.
And when it comes to the homegrown side of things, we look in Europe, it seems to be breaking into a pretty clear and concise industry that pharmaceutical and biotech are going to be taking care of drug development and potential ingredients for cosmetics and beauty and various other things. And then you're going to have a homegrown rule and the cannabis social club model. Do you see the cultivation expertise in Europe being able to grow from one of the benefits of the home grow rule and the social club model? Or do you think that the likes of low cost flower from Colombia and other destinations are still going to be imported into the EU?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really hard to say. You already have imports happening from all over the world into the EU, fully legally, through some few different distributors, importers, who kind of found some interesting ways to interpret the import rules, and that's a benefit. But I think in the long term, you're going to see people wanting certain quality, and also people many times prefer something that's more locally grown, whether it be for environmental reasons or nationalistic or pride reasons. They want something that was grown here at home. So you always have some imports, but I think there's always going to be room for good quality products grown right here in Europe.
Yeah, I think Canada seems to be a good model that not everybody wants the low cost, huge MSO production of cannabis. The small cultivars and the craft growers seem to be taking a large market share there. And I would imagine that if you live in France or you live in Ireland or you live in Germany or Czech Republic, that there's going to be a little bit of national pride towards choosing the product that gets made in your own individual country.
Exactly. And you saw that, you saw that with craft beer, craft distilleries, and all these other industries, where you always have the big players who have a huge part of the market share, but there's room for those smaller growers or smaller suppliers for those products where, like you said, it's quality, it's interesting cultivars, it's playing on the national pride, different things like that. There will always be room for that. And I think you'll see that also with cannabis. Like you said, you're seeing it in Canada and the US now already. And I think, it took a long time for the craft beer and craft distillery industries to develop from the bigger industries. But I think with cannabis, you're seeing that kind of accelerated much more quickly just because of the other industries that have already kind of spawned those types of craft movements.
Yeah. Now, I know you're a very busy man, so one last question before we go. What are you looking forward to seeing the most happen in Europe over the next 18 to 24 months? Is there one thing that you think will be a domino effect, or is there one personal thing that you would love to see happen?
I mean, if we could see the legalization in Germany continue forward, and I think that's going to be through the individual cities doing research projects. If that could get kind of ironed out, including, which I think is going to be extremely important, having the import allowed somehow for these research projects, which should be allowed under the current rules, then I think you will see a huge development of those individual city markets. And that will, of course, then I think really start to change the public perception of cannabis, even for recreational purposes. And it will show people, just like it did in the US and Canada, that it is not evil. The recreational or legalization for adult use is not going to bring all these horrible consequences, and actually brings a lot of positive consequences. So hopefully that can get kind of sorted somewhat in the next 18 to 24 months, and start to see some data come out of that to start changing public opinion further, and political opinion in the right direction.
Andy, it's been actually great talking to you. Hopefully we can touch base towards the end of the year and we've got some sort of advancements in the EU. For any company or employee who's looking to get into the industry, I highly recommend going to EUCannaJobs. Find them on social media, on LinkedIn and on Twitter, and give them a follow, because they're going to be at the forefront of employment in this multi-billion-dollar industry over the coming future. Andy, thank you very much for now, mate, and I hope you have a great day.
Thanks, Alan. It was a pleasure, and we'll talk soon. Have a great.
You will indeed. Until next episode, everybody. Thanks a million, Andy, mate. Much appreciated.
Yeah, that was great. I think that went well. Appreciate it, and have a great day.
Yeah, you too, mate.
Okay. See you. Oh, wait, you're muted.